Hello and welcome to our course on drone surveying. In today's lecture, we are going to learn about some do's and don'ts while flying drones for data collection. So, in this course, we learned about various workflows about flight planning as well as for DSM and DEM generation in order to meet the project objectives. And in these workflows, as we saw, often the drone data quality is directly linked with the field practices which are followed. We also learned about the cost economics as well as safety, privacy, and regulatory aspect of the drone survey. And safety, regulation, and accuracy depend on well planned and controlled workflow. So we can say that good practices lead to reduction of GNSS errors, having good overlaps, stable flights, and also legal compliance. Hence, we will look at some of the important do's and don'ts of a drone survey. They can be identified for each stage of drone survey. So they can be do's and don'ts for pre-flight, during the flight, post-flight. They can also be identified for different components of a survey. For example, for drone system, data processing, operators, surroundings and environment, planning and economics, and so on. So the pre-flight do's are always to follow the DGCA regulations, obtain the remote pilot license if required, verify the flight zone whether it's green, yellow or red using digital sky map and flying altitude correspondingly, and get permission through NPNT, which is no permission no takeoff, and also ensure drone registration with its own unique identification number. You should also ensure your drone is ready for survey. So you should validate the condition of a drone through the health of the propellers, battery, sensor is clean, firmware has been adequately updated. Also, your drone should be calibrated in terms of its IMU, gimbal, and the compass, and also ensure that storage is available and camera settings are in accordance to the survey which is planned. The pre-flight don'ts are that do not ignore the weather forecast if there is chances of rain, chances of snow, chances of severe smog conditions or heavy wind gust, then do not fly a drone in such situation. Never fly a drone with damaged or stolen battery because then it can crash midway and it can cause accidents. Avoid flying drones near magnetic interference sources such as power lines and towers because these interfere with the IMU, they also interfere with the GNSS receiver on the drone. And do not take off without SD card logging enabled and mission loaded on the drone because then in that case no data will be saved or your drone can also get lost or again cause an accident. Then during the surveying, ensure that following points have been followed. So the survey ground control points should be established with the RTK or PPK GNSS and their positional accuracy should be verified before starting the survey. Ensure good spatial distribution of the GCPs. So they should be placed in the corner of the area of interest. They should be distributed in the center and also at location of sudden elevation differences. And also GCPs should be placed in such locations that can be seen with high visibility and they are well defined targets. Then plan an optimal altitude, speed and side lap to ensure good coverage of all the area. Use terrain following feature in hilly areas. Select appropriate flight path orientation depending on the slope terrain and depending on the wind condition. For example, if there's slope of a mountain, then the flight path should be in a direction perpendicular to slope direction. So if the slope is like this, then flight path should be like this rather than facing the slope direction. Also identify emergency landing zones and rally points. Then visual line of sight must always be maintained. After that, battery, GNSS, collision sensors should be monitored. We should always follow the airspace rules, altitude limits, and geofencing should be established, and only fly during daylight or clear weather condition. The things that we should not do during surveying is do not fly in red zone or within 12 km of airports without proper clearance. Don't exceed 400 feet or 120-meter altitude in green zones. Don't fly over crowds, highways, or sensitive infrastructure. Don't operate drones beyond visual line of sight or in areas with poor visibility. Do not carry hazardous material or payloads which exceed the drone limit. Don't fly near military bases, borders, or nuclear installation. And one should also not operate without proper calibration of the drone, should not operate if the weather is unstable, should not operate over private properties without prior consent, and should not use unlicensed or non compliant drone. And whenever there is a manned aircraft, then that aircraft always has the right of way prior to the drone. So always yield to the manned aircraft such as helicopters or other airplanes. After a flight, the recommended do's are to safely land and power off the drone and controller first. Then back up all the flight and image data, record flight logs, weather conditions, and flight duration, inspect the drone for any physical damage, and review the metadata such as the timestamp, geotag, and also the exposure of the images, whether it is not too dark or too bright, in which case there will be problem of finding type points between overlapping images, and also inspect for blurring or haze issues in those photographs, in which case the drone survey may have to be repeated. The post flight don'ts are with regards to the data. So, ensure data security and confidentiality, especially if it is for government or private projects. Don't alter or manipulate data that affects accuracy or interpretation. And don't share or publish sensitive geospatial data without prior authorization. So, these are the major do's and don'ts for drone surveys. That is all for today's lecture. Thank you very much.